Hey, welcome to Dialed MTB. If you're new to the channel, I'm Shane, and I just really enjoy bikes and telling you guys what I think about them. So today we're going to do a transition Spur versus Specialized StumpJumper. So it's a 120/120 bike and a 130/140. So kind of going to go into what makes you need that extra 10 to 20 millimeters of travel in the rear and the front. All right, so these models are both XL1 based. This is the StumpJumper Pro. It's an $8,000 build, but I did change a couple things. I went to aluminum wheels. They're only a couple $100 less than the carbon wheels that come on it, and went to regular cable shifting instead of axis. So it is, I'd say, maybe a $7,000-ish build, $700 to $7,200. And then this one over here, $6,499. The transition Spur is super hard to find and probably one of the hardest bikes to find right now out there. I've heard from a bunch of people, they've been waiting over a year. Where this bike, most dealers actually should have it in stock, or online might have it in stock also. So let's go ahead and jump into the StumpJumper first. So this one is Fox Factory suspension, front and rear. It comes with the Fox Factory 34 with the Grip 2 damper, which I really appreciate. That Specialized spec'd it with that Grip 2 damper. It is really good. Another highlight of this bike is the bike yoke dropper. That's probably my favorite dropper. It is my favorite dropper. And then it's just solid spec. The only thing that I really don't like on it is the SRAM G2 RSC brakes. I'm not a SRAM brake fan, but this bike does come with that also. I just changed them out to Magura's. So it's a wash on that because it's the same. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get on the trail and see how this thing does. All right, so we are on the StumpJumper. We're doing things a little bit different for this comparison video. I'm gonna do I'm gonna do downhill, and then I'm gonna do climbing, and then gonna do downhill again for each one. So the StumpJumper has always, to me, just jump so comfortably. It's a little windy right now, but man, it is just a very comfortable jumping bike. It just is very natural, I'd say, and just very, like, on the landings, I know these aren't anything bigger than 10 feet or so, maybe 15, but the bike is just a very flush lander. Yeah, and it just carries speed through corners well, easy to get up to speed again fast, so it's pretty rad. I really enjoy it. Man, it's pretty tough to see right now, so hopefully you guys can see the trail well. But yeah, this is a really good jumping bike, and yeah, super flowy. Flow trails like that, I feel like it's kind of the StumpJumper's jam, where, I mean, obviously we're gonna get back up to the top and bring it down it's a little bit steeper, a little bit rockier, and see how it does on that. But first, let's go ahead and talk about the climbing. All right, so for climbing, this bike, right away, if you've followed any of my channel, any of my videos on the channel, I really do like this bike. For a 130 millimeter travel bike, I just don't think there's another bike that climbs as well as this with this much travel. Any bike that I've rode with 125 millimeters of rear travel or more, this bike out climbs it. So that's pretty rad. It's a very comfortable feel for me. I'm on an S3, which is also a size medium basically, and I'm 5'8", super comfortable feeling bike. So I am doing a timed climb on both bikes, keeping my heart rate right about in that 155 to 160 range for both, and I'm gonna see which one's faster. I'm guessing it's gonna be the Spur, but you never know. All right, on a little bit steeper bits of the climb, the StumpJumper really just has a really solid platform for pedaling. So honestly, no big complaints at all on this bike for climbing. It's super solid. Like I said, best in class for 130 millimeters of rear travel. All right, well, let's go ahead and head back down and see how this thing does. All right, here we go. StumpJumper down shake and bake. So a little bit steeper, a little bit rougher. Let's see how this thing goes. With the Spur, I don't know if I would be able to jump any of that stuff back there and feel confident, but we'll see. I have not rode the Spur on this trail yet, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I'm like, that was like maybe a 2-foot drop-ish, nothing big. But on a drop like that, super plush. I set this bike up exactly how Specialized has it on their website, and I would 100% recommend using that because it's a pretty dang good tool, and I feel like the bike works really, really well. With that, we're going to use this line for both bikes because we're going to try to get a time in. We'll see how it works. But yeah, this bike, I mean, this trail on video, I'm sure, looks pretty dang smooth, but it has rocks and, oh man, I got a bug in my ear. That was weird. But also some braking bumps. And then as you can see at the end, some nice flow jump sections. And man, like, honestly, this bike for this type of terrain is pretty rad. So we'll see if the 120 millimeter Spur can keep up with this thing or hold its own. All right, real quick, let's talk a little bit of numbers. This bike has a 450 millimeter reach in the low setting, 65.0 degree head tube angle. This is S3. Head tube angles are all the same, but other than that, everything's gonna change, obviously. So for full geometry stuff, I just recommend watching my StumpJumper video in the link down below that has all the geometry stuff in it. Okay, we are gonna move on to the transition Spur. Let's go ahead and check this build out real quick. It is X01, so it's X01 drivetrain completely, the X1 carbon crank, same as the StumpJumper, pretty much identical style builds. It's a 1-up carbon bar instead of the Revolve carbon bar. It does come with a raised face turbine R stem, which is really nice. I really like that stem. And then a 1-up dropper. The 1-up dropper is probably one of my favorite droppers, so probably top 3, top 4. Not quite as nice as the bike yoke, but it's super solid. This one comes with the Sid Ultimate up front and the Sid Lux Ultimate rear shock, and I've been really impressed with those lately with this bike, so pretty rad. Let's go ahead and get on the trails and ride this thing and see how it does. All right, we're going down shake and bake. We're gonna do this one first because I just did it on the StumpJumper and I want to feel the difference between these two back and forth. Oh man, this thing is pretty dang good. Up here in this top section where it's flat, it definitely feels faster, that's for sure. All right, let's do this, see how it feels. Oh yeah, that was a little more rough than the StumpJumper, that's for sure. I'm out here with my girlfriend also, and pretty sure she likes the StumpJumper better. She goes more for the comfortability on the downhill. Sorry, I got some brake squeak, but anyways, yeah, she likes the comfortability more. I don't know, right now I think I'm kind of enjoying this Spur a little more on this. Kind of makes it, I wouldn't say more challenging, but almost kind of more fun, because it's not just plow through. I know you're not plowing through anything on a 130 mil trail bike, but man, I think my time might be faster on the Spur on this trail, which will be interesting to see. So wrapping this thing up, man, for that trail, it's pretty rad. It's actually a lot better than I expected for the Spur. Like I said, I have not rode this bike on that trail yet, so pretty dang sweet. Transition really killed it with this bike, and there's a reason why it is so hard to find. All right, let's get to the climb, see how this thing does on that, and then continue on. All right, here we go. Starting the climb on the Spur. And we're gonna see how this thing does compared to the StumpJumper. So right away, I am using the lockout on both just to keep it as fair as possible. I usually am not a huge fan of using lockouts, but for this test, I wanted to, just because. Anyways, right away, this bike, once again, just very comfortable. They're actually not that big a difference in numbers. This is a size medium. The other one's an S3, which is the medium, and both pretty dang similar feeling as far as like sitting on the bike climbing. So I already feel like this bike is going a little faster than the StumpJumper did. I'm not sure. We'll get to the top and talk about the climbing numbers there, but overall thinking that this is faster. All right, so honestly, this little steep part of the climb, I don't think it's that much different than the StumpJumper. I'm in one harder gear, so it's obviously something, but felt pretty similar. So overall, climbing on this bike is pretty dang quick. I feel like it kind of makes you want to get up and go. Like, I don't know, it's pretty cool. Anyways, let's wrap up the climbing. This thing is solid. Definitely feels better than the StumpJumper. All right, here we go. Down the flow trail. I waited till the sun went down so that the sun wasn't glaring in the camera or my eyes. But man, so the Spur, it turns out, is just a freaking rad bike. It carries a lot of speed and is pretty dang, like, just comfortable to ride all the time. Obviously, if you were doing real gnarly stuff, it would be a little overwhelmed. But honestly, like, if you're not doing like real gnarly stuff or any park days, actually I feel okay doing 1 or 2 park days a year on this thing. But gosh, it's just very comfortable, and it's not quite as plush as the StumpJumper is on the landings, but it's not harsh either. So pretty rad bike. I really like it. I'm actually going to build, I like this bike so much, I'm going to basically be doing a full custom build on it. A lot of things in the works for this bike, so I'm pretty stoked. Whew. Yeah, this bike just makes you want to jump around and goof off. But let's cover a couple things real quick. 455 millimeter reach, size medium, 66-degree head tube angle. If you want to know more, check out my video on this bike in the link below, where I go more through the geometry on this thing. But let's go see what those times show and wrap this thing up. All right, it's time to go through all the time climbing and the time descents. I had time to go through them since I've got home, and it's about what I expected. All right, let's start with the climb. StumpJumper was at 4 minutes and 58 seconds, while the Spur was at 4 minutes and 26 seconds. So it's a 32-second difference for less than a 5-minute climb. That's pretty decent. That's like, what, about 10% or so. So that's pretty impressive. I did expect the Spur to be quite a bit quicker though, because it's about a pound lighter, and it just has such a quick feeling climbing capability, I would say, I guess. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the downhill. So let's start with the easy one, the flow trail first. On the StumpJumper, it was 1 minute and 36 seconds. Spur was 1 minute and 38 seconds, so 2 seconds. I felt faster on the Spur, but I think that was just because it's not quite as smooth and plush feeling. And it feels like you're moving faster on that bike for some reason. Same on the shake and bake trail. It just felt quicker. But anyways, 2 seconds different, very close. Talk about shake and bake. That was the trail that kind of starts off a little flat but has more rocks and then gets steeper and then ends with jumps. That trail was 1 minute and 44 seconds on the Spur and 1 minute and 43 seconds on the StumpJumper. So gosh, it was like almost identical. Once again, I felt way faster on the Spur. I think I was faster up top. If I was able to do like a segment up top section, I was probably a decent amount quicker. And then once it got in the rocky stuff and then the little bit steeper stuff, I think that's where the StumpJumper, I probably gained a few seconds on it. And then down at the bottom, it was probably a wash where the jumps are. I bet you those were the same. So if you're looking for a bike that's kind of just very broad, open to do everything, climb well, descend well, like doesn't do anything amazing, but does everything really good, that StumpJumper is really hard to beat. That's just the regular StumpJumper, not the Evo. We're talking about the StumpJumper 130, 140 travel. The Evo would be more like gravity oriented, obviously, which is a sweet bike. But we're talking about the 130 bike, and man, I just think it's a really good, well-rounded bike. Maybe one of the most well-rounded 130-ish travel bikes out there right now. Climbs better than probably any 130 bike, and descends I would say it's not the best descender out of any of the 130 bikes, but it's up there and it's very comfortable. Then talking about the Spur, man, that bike is just a different bike. I mean, it is so fun. It's one of the most fun bikes I've ever rode. Not because it plows through everything and makes it easy, but it kind of makes you plan your stuff a little bit. And then if you do want to plow through something, you'll get rocked around a little bit. But it's just such a fun bike, and climbing on that thing is just so dang good. Like, man, for what it can do on the descent, it should not be able to climb that well. Anyways, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up, and hopefully something that I said in here helped you decide if you want that all-around 130-ish travel bike, or even just the StumpJumper itself, or if you have a 150, 160, 170 bike, I would not go with the StumpJumper, and if you want a second bike, go with that Spur, or any of the other like downcountry-ish bikes, that 120, maybe 115 travel bikes. Man, they are just so cool. I would definitely look at the geometry though, and I personally don't want anything steeper than that 66-degree head tube angle that's on the Spur. So anyways, guys, I don't want to bore you too long with all the specs, but let's get this thing wrapped up. All right, so we've rode both these bikes up and down the hills and talked about how they've done, and hopefully this helped you decide what style of bike, even if it's not one of these, but maybe if you wanted a 120 travel bike, but now you maybe want a little bit more travel, just a tiny bit, or if you need a little less travel. So hopefully something in this video clicked with you and it really helped out. But other than that, really appreciate you guys watching. Like and subscribe for more like this, and like always, get out and ride.